You guys remember when that 20-mile convoy of military vehicles in the first week of the war was coming down from Belarus to Kiev, and how on the day 4 of the war it stopped because they forgot fuel? And on day 7, all the soldiers walked back to Belarus because they also forgot food.
Good morning, everyone. So excited to be here. Thrilled to get to be up here with the two of you. This is going to be a really great discussion about topics that we all really care about and need to hear y'all's perspectives on. So I would like to start with you, Daniel. You were just in Ukraine on Friday. What is the situation like on the ground there? Can you tell us what's going on?
Thanks very much, Marian. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's a long way to get here these days. I'll never complain about the lines at passport control in Kiev airport when it reopens again. It's a difficult situation right now, as it has been throughout. We're advancing in some areas and we're in a stalemate in others. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we were advancing before, but they've now thrown masses of people, most of them prisoners, that they've emptied their prisons out at our troops that have slowed us down. But you know, throughout this war, throughout this battle, I mean, it's amazing that we are even where we are today. We weren't supposed to be here. Right. And you know, all the predictions that 3 days and they're going to roll Kiev, in a week and 3 weeks they're going to take all of Ukraine. And to an enormous extent, that's because of the fact that Ukrainians are resistant, they're resilient, and they're resolute. And we have this concept of total resistance. And it comes from the fact that the entire country is at war. And I joined the territorial, I live in Kiev, I've been living in Ukraine for 30 years. I'm a Canadian. I joined the Territorial Defense Forces even before the war started. I was one of the few people that actually thought there was going to be a war. And I've been absolutely amazed at how society has come together to support not just the army, but the army supporting society. Mm-hmm. And it's been absolutely critical that this massive volunteer force that we have in the country has come together. Had we not had that, very early on, we probably would have lost Kiev because our army didn't have the logistic supply lines. I mean, I'm in the Territorial Defense Forces, which is kind of like the reserve of the army, but in a wartime situation, you get pushed to the front line. And my battalion didn't have helmets, didn't have body armor. There are people like me, like you, that are just called up and are serving to save their country. And I really would like to thank the people in this audience, and especially Ron Biscardi and Sarah Finley, who connected me with you folks. And you know, the allocators gave their time, and I think you raised over $150,000 that I was able to go and buy helmets and body armor and some basic essentials just to equip myself and my colleagues. And I'm eternally grateful to all of you. You saved a lot of lives. I just want you to know that. Plus the humanitarian aspect of it as well. So, I mean, you know, I think that we are in a difficult situation. I think that we have now reached, I'm hoping that we have reached the tipping point with the fact that we are going to be taken off the drip feed and the life support system and finally get the weapons that we really need in order to end this war. And it really is a tribute to everybody, both in Ukraine as well as outside of Ukraine, who have really stood up for freedom.
That's wonderful, and that's so nice to hear. It's horrifying, and I'm curious, you know, from your perspective, it must be hard to retain optimism necessarily, but how does this end in your view?
Well, we don't have any choice. This is essentially a war of extermination. We have an enemy that is trying to wipe Ukrainians off the face of the earth. This is a genocidal terrorist attempt to take a country of 40 million people and basically rid it of the people that live there. So that really helps focus your mind, I have to tell you. And we have no choice. And we will fight to the end. The situation now is that we have no electricity, we have intermittent electricity, we have intermittent heat. We've had 3 air raid warnings I got on my phone app today. We were attacked last week with hypersonic missiles going after electricity grids. Putin is at war with the Ukrainian people, and the horrific atrocities that have taken place in places like Bucha, Irpin, Mykolaiv, Izium. You can go through them where women and children are being raped and murdered and tortured. I mean, we've just gone so far. We've had 13 million people displaced from their homes, 8 million of which live in the EU, 3 million have been deported into Russia, and 14,000 children have been kidnapped and are being put up for adoption with Russian families. I mean, this is horrific. And out of all of this, 90% of Ukrainians say, not 1 centimeter of land do we give them. We do not leave him on our soil because he will come back. And he will come back not just to take us, but to take EU countries, Poland, the Baltic states, and that's when American soldiers die. This is the deal of the century for NATO countries and the United States in particular. We do the fighting, we do the dying, you give us the weapons, and we defeat and weaken your enemy. And this is your enemy, because he says he's your enemy. He's out to destroy everything that we believe in and as people who love freedom and believe in freedom. And, I think that in NATO countries, the cost of supporting Ukraine is if you take the NATO countries together, 0.01% of GDP. For Americans, for the amount of aid that they've given Ukraine, it's $14 a month. And I don't think you're going to make a better investment, frankly, than that. So I think victory actually means, from my perspective, from President Zelensky's perspective, he says, total defeat of the Russian army in Ukraine, back to our 1991 borders, to regain our sovereignty, war crimes tribunals, and reparations. For me personally, that translates as my friends come home in one piece, and I go to Crimea this summer for a holiday.
Well, I hope you get that.
Thank you.
Can we talk to you, Peter, about your perspective? And hey, hard pivot. No, I want to hear from you as well about what you see for Ukraine's future. I know you've done a ton of kind of modeling and figuring out what the winds are saying. Can you tell us a little bit about where you think?
Well, let me start by saying I didn't hear anything over here that spooks me or I disagree with at all. But looking at it from the bigger picture, just to kind of underline what's at stake here. You guys remember when that 20-mile convoy of military vehicles in the first week of the war was coming down from Belarus to Kiev, and how on the day 4 of the war it stopped because they forgot fuel, and on day 7